Mark Reynolds, President Americas and Chief Customer Officer at US Multinational Salute. Thanks so much for joining me on Decoding Calm in 15 minutes.
Great. Thank you for having me, Steve. Appreciate the time.
Pleasure, Mark. So, the point of this mini podcast is to really try and get inside the mind of senior leaders, but in one area specifically, and it's something that's fascinated me since a young boy, which is how can senior leaders handle the pressure of the real high stakes jobs, the real responsibility of millions of dollar decisions in charge of big numbers of people, just taking the biggest business decisions in the world, I guess. What makes these people tick? How can they do that and still sleep at night? How can they still do that and
hmm
function, stay calm, switch off after work, stay healthy? And I guess ultimately what I want to tease out from these little mini podcasts is what can we learn from these people? Is there anything these people can share? Are you just born that way? Do you have to work hard at it? And if there's any tips that you can share with us, I'm sure the people listening will love to hear it. So let me kick off with, I guess the first question mark would be, would you describe yourself as a calm person?
Uh, I would like to be known as a calm person, but I would say in reality, I have a mentor actually who has recently said, Mark, sometimes I feel like you're a little bit highly strung.
Okay.
And so it's been great feedback, and I continue to work on that just because I know that that is an opportunity for me to to come into situations a bit more calm. So it's great to have that self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you always know when you're a young boy, did you always aspire to be a senior leader? Did you know that was kind of what you wanted to do, or did you just find your way into it?
When I was a young boy, I think I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. So did not have any, you don't go to school to come to learn to be a leader at a higher level, right? It just kind of evolves that way through the choice and through circumstances throughout your career that you take advantage of. One door opens, you go through that door, one door closes, another one opens, and eventually you land where you're at.
Okay. And you're never intimidated at the thought of leading people or needing to take the big decisions or being in charge of a lot of people? That never kind of intimidated you?
No, actually, I love it. I thrive on it, and I thrive on leading people. I feel like that is one of my gifts that
Yeah,
I've been given is to be able to lead teams and to be able to guide them down the path towards success.
perfect. What would you say is a big question mark? What would you say is the highest stakes situation you've been in, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought about it too much. I would say that I've been in many high stakes situations where you go into those meetings knowing that either the customer is going to say yes or no to you, new business, or they're going to leave you because they're not happy. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
But I think the way I kind of approach that, Steve, is I look at every ones of those conversations. There's none that's higher than the other. They're all very the same because I think my fear is that if I put too much stress or pressure and make it too high of stakes, then it kind of creates extra anxiety and extra concern that is really not needed. You just have to go into those situations knowing who you are, what you're great at. And in the end, if you've done your best and that customer decides to not go that way, life will go on. That it's okay. Things happen for a reason. I'm always under the belief that that is a big part of it's a big part of how I operate is that things happen for a reason, and if things don't go the way you want, there will be another opportunity down the way that will go your way.
I think that's a good answer because I think so many people get so het up about I've got to get this client. I've got to this is the key meeting. It's going to be the biggest meeting of the year, and they get so frustrated and head up. And performance just degrades, doesn't it? The higher your anxiety
Uh,
level, the more pressure you put on yourself. It's very hard to perform at a high level there.
yeah, and it is, and what also happens is not only are you putting pressure on yourself, you put pressure on the team, and then all of a sudden that stress cascades down, and they're feeling it, and then they're cascading it down. All of a sudden, you have this high stress situation where the great culture you had, all of a sudden is deteriorating because of we're putting too much of this one situation on a pedestal that if this doesn't work out, everything is going to go fall apart. That's not
Yeah.
the case.
So, what are there any practical steps you could share with us, Mark? What would you literally do if you were going to go into a big meeting, particularly a big meeting? So you've been through that kind of that self-talk that says it is what it is, it's going to work the way it works. I go through plenty of these. we'll do our best, and whatever happens next is fine. But is there anything else that you literally do? How would you prepare for something like that? What would you do the night before or the weeks leading up to it? Is there anything you would do differently, or any things that you would use to calm and quiet your mind, or anything else?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is first of all having discussions with my team as well as my leadership, my boss, just to kind of say, here's the situation and where we're at. Setting expectations, I think, is really critical up front, so we're all aligned and knowing where things are at. Um, in terms of what I do, and do I do anything different? No, I don't. I do whatever I do regularly, and I think from my kind of our history, Steve, is I wake up, every morning at 4:30 and I work out. It's a big part of helping drive it. My keep trying to keep me calm from being too high strung. I work out and then I have some time of prayer, and generally I would pray about that situation. And then I have just based on the techniques you've taught, my target, my goal every morning is 5 minutes of mindfulness and just sitting there and focusing on breath and kind of body scans and just kind of being present. So I do that every day is my goal, and generally that puts me in a state of being ready for any situation that arises
Perfect.
throughout the day, and then of course for these higher stakes situations.
Yeah. So you've kind of got a pantheon of good things that you do religiously every day. You wake up, you do your physical exercise for your body and mind, I guess. You do your
Yeah.
prayer and you do your mindfulness for
Yep.
fundamentally for your mind, but also for your body.
Yep.
Perfect. Um, how do you maintain focus year after year? And let me tie that in with another question. Have things changed? If you look back at your 21-year-old self versus now, for example, are you a different person now? And if you could go back and change things, or if you could give that younger you any advice, what advice would you give them in terms of maintaining?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly obviously you learn from lessons and throughout the career, and I'm always a believer that I always need to get better. I am continually motivated to do better and be the best that I can be. I also know that while I do things great, I know that I there are areas where I can still improve. Even as high as we go in leadership, we always need to be self-aware that we can't do it all, and be open to others. Now, if I went back to my 21 year old self, um, and I think the kind of the guidance to my 21-year-old self would be just kind of trust the process, and don't don't try and force things to make them work when they're not meant to work. And I had a couple of situations earlier in my career where I wanted that job so badly, and I did these certain things to try and get that job, which I thought at the right time was great. I was being resourceful. I was emailing the CEO saying I'm the guy for the job, and it actually backfired in a pretty significant way. And so part of it is how do you just let the process go and know and trust that things will work themselves out. And as long as you are being who you are, you're being true to yourself. I think that's the most important thing that I would tell my 21-year old self. Just kind of like let it go.
Yeah, perfect. Does anything keep you awake at night, Mark?
Um, I'd say when there are job changes or job things that are popping up, and I'm thinking about, like, have I done everything, or maybe I'd say if I do get an email, like I feel like I'm not doing my best, or I feel like I've let someone down, and what could I have done different? I think that's honestly, Steve, what keeps me up the most, is where I feel like I could do better, and I've maybe gotten an argument, or maybe there's conflict with someone.
Yeah,
That's where that's honestly what keeps me up at night. But generally, it's not like it happens every night. I just, every month or so, there's that, oh shoot, like, how do I handle this certain dialogue with this particular individual, and how do we get through that? So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing.
okay. And Ray Dalio, who's the founder of the world's largest hedge fund, he famously said, meditation more than anything in my life was the biggest ingredient of whatever success I've had. Can you identify the biggest ingredient of your success so far?
Well, yeah, I'd say going into situations where I want to say two if I can.
Sure.
One is just like kind of it's like the life is too short. Like go and have fun doing what you're doing. You
Yeah.
spend as much time away from your family working, like enjoy it. You might as well enjoy it doing what you're doing. And if you're not enjoying doing what you're doing, then you shouldn't be doing that. The other thing is something you and I kind of chatted about last week, which sounds kind of funny and maybe trite, but I do think it's kind of been my secret weapon, and that's around responsiveness. Um, I do think that as the more that I can be responsive, not too responsive, but responsive to my team and to whoever I'm working with, and even if I don't know the answer, they know that I've acknowledged the email
Yeah.
or the voicemail and on it. But I do think the more responsive we can be, it can be differentiating, and I think it's helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah. I would certainly say that. I mean, you're right. You're talking about how we arranged this chat, aren't we? So I emailed you and I said, "Hey, Mark, I'm doing this. Would you come on?"
Yeah,
And you're fantastic at that. I will absolutely tip my hat to you. Your response rates are amazing. Even if you write back and say, I can't deal with this right now, I've seen it, I'll come back to you.
yeah.
People love that. The communication. If there's one thing that you do really well, is communicate with people. And like you say, even if you just write back to them and say, I can't deal with it right now, we'll get to it at a certain point. There's nothing worse, and I feel it more as a business owner now. There's nothing worse than putting emails out into the ether that just you don't know if they
Oh,
read them, you get ghosted a million times.
drives me
I
nuts.
appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Right, we've almost run out of time, Mark, but I'm gonna whiz some quick fire questions at you. So these are just maybe one or two word answers. Are you a morning or an evening person?
Oh, morning, 100%.
Yeah, 4:30 a.m., right?
Yes.
Emails or phone calls?
Well, unfortunately, emails.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably should do more phone calls to be honest with you, but email sometimes just it's easier to communicate what you need to.
Yeah. Favorite meal?
I like a good macaroni and cheese.
Do you?
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure? If that's different from your favorite meal.
Oh, I just love watching sports.
Do
Like
you?
I just love turning on the telly and
Any
just
sport in particular?
watching. Well, if I always say if my wife said, "All right, Mark, you can only watch one sport for the rest of your life, got to cut everything else," what would that be?
Yeah.
I'd say baseball.
Okay. Who's your team?
San Francisco Giants.
Nice. Last question. If you could invite anyone over for dinner, alive or dead, who would it be?
So this might be a little cliche, but I'd say Jesus Christ. I mean, it would be great to spend time just chatting with him, in the flesh, face to face.
Wow. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thanks for all you do, Steve, and look forward to future discussions.
Thanks a lot, Mark.